You're listening to Siris podcast. Join us as we transcend cultural barriers and elevate diverse voices. Here, we inspire, inform, and empower one story at a time. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Siris Says if you're a return listener, and if you're a new listener, welcome once again. Today I have a guest who is one of my close friends, but also he is at a very high level in the corporate world, as you would say. He's the director of project controls. His name is Anthony Khouphongsy. So yeah, welcome, Anthony.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Siris. So yeah, as you kind of said and introduced, I'm a director for project controls for a life science real estate company. What that kind of means essentially is I work within our design and construction practice, right? So these are the folks who, are managing the architects, the engineers, the contractors. I call it like the execution team of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So design and construction team, we're the ones who are actually building, the campuses for life science, for tenants like Pfizer, for Moderna's, the people out there who, are doing kind of more of that R&D.
Big pharma.
Exactly, right. Within the design and construction function of our company,
Yeah.
I more so do the cost management, the finance, accounting, and the treasury functions for all that we do. We have about $5 billion that we were spending globally between San Diego, Boston,
The hubs,
London, kind of all around, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's, we're a small company that's only been around for about 5 years. And so I got brought on board pretty early on to kind of essentially build out the infrastructure of the practice to control, the cost that we spend, in the field and to help as we, build through this tough market, so we say.
Since you deal with cost, and it's always, the most challenging aspect of, working in corporate, what do you guys focus on, the majority of the money going towards?
Yeah, so when we're building these, I call it products almost, right?
Yeah.
So campuses, so you call it, right? We try to think of how we can make this a one-of-a-kind type product, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think you've kind of, worked in a little bit of the life science pharma spaces, right?
I'm familiar with that, yeah.
In my past experiences, there's been a lot of spaces where they weren't sophisticated. The plumbing was sketchy.
Yeah.
There were some things that were probably illegal, right? That type of space hasn't really existed, I would say, in throughout the world in America, as far as the space for us, for folks to kind of do the R&D and kind of come up with these, treatments kind of solve today's problems. But what I was trying to go with that is that, we try to be thoughtful and functional in our design, in our build out. So we're talking everything from, having the gym, service operators.
You're sort of like modernizing science buildings, which they're usually very unsophisticated for the most part. They're very boring to work at because there's just not amenities.
Exactly.
Basically, spaces where people can take good breaks.
Yeah.
Especially when you're doing scientific work, which is very heavy.
Exactly. And so we also look at, as far as where we deploy our money, we're more focused on kind of where we find that talent, right? For the life science, the big pharma techs and biotech companies, right? Within the top 5 is here in San Diego where we're at. So, born and raised here my entire life, and then out in Boston as well. So we kind of look at kind of Boston being like another example, South San Francisco, and kind of like the Seattle market is kind of like, where we look at places to kind of strategically place ourselves. So that way, when we build it 3 to 5 years later, there will be kind of that need and supply in the market for what we're building essentially.
So what got you into this job?
It's kind of funny how I got here. I swear as a kid, I always thought I wanted to be here, but then as I navigated it through life, it kind of really brought me back in full circle here. I started off in college not knowing exactly where I wanted to do. I was lost. Being a first generation college student, I didn't really have the guidance of the family to try to help myself, navigate through those, challenges that a lot of us kind of go through. And plus, didn't really come from those privileged background either. So, kind of lost child in college, and I dropped out of that for a little bit, and I did a trade school apprenticeship program for the American General Contractors of America, which they essentially help kind of build a better future for construction, right? And so, long story short, I kind of worked at a job with them down for the Terminal 2 expansion airport at Daniels Airport, the expansion project there. I worked on a few things over there where that's kind of where it sparked my interest in construction and being, seeing things come from plans to real life, right? And then, kind of working there for a general contractor, I was like, wow, this is great work, but like, I'm gonna throw my back out by 33. So that's kind of when I went back to school to try to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. Not growing up in a high income family or anything like that. My dad kind of being a chronic alcoholic, like it was kind of a tough. And so, a lot of that had me drive to wanting to get into finance, right, where there was money, so that way I could not have to worry about money.
You want stability,
exactly,
that's what you were looking for. Yeah.
So started off in the whole finance realm of the world and try to get into different parts of finance, corporate finance, either investment banking or just wealth management. Kind of had to dabble around with that, right? I still had the finance interests, and then going through college, as I'm coming up on my last year, I'm kind of like, I don't really want to do this type of finance work, right? And so I kind of thought about my construction experience that I had at the airport.
Implement it on that.
Exactly, right? So kind of, how do I tie that together? And I know that, real estate development, there's the finance component to that, right?
Yeah.
And so then that's kind of where I decided to focus a little bit of my academics. And then I started to get into that right out of college, where I worked for owners and investors to help, do facelift to their buildings or, do any construction programs and such. And so, now I'm more just kind of more focused on the finance and construction side of real estate.
That's so interesting. What's your favorite part of the whole process? Because it's a very long process.
Yeah, it's a very long process. No, it truly is. And
it takes years.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And there's so much that can happen in between and, so much stress that kind of goes on that you sometimes don't even kind of take a step back. I'm going to have to probably say working toward after delivering a building or campus, right? For example, we just had Pfizer took the last 250,000 square feet of our campus, and we had a ribbon cutting where essentially we're throwing a big spectacular party for the campus and welcoming some of the tenants, right? So we just did that for one of our projects here in San Diego, and this kind of had me feeling a little more special.
So your favorite part is the final product.
Yeah, exactly. The
relief that I'm done with this.
Unfortunately, I'm still not done. Still doing things there, but walking this plot of dirt, essentially, and then now seeing it into the spectacular real estate product, and now you're seeing the new home for Pfizer's Oncology Center. You're seeing the home to new other companies like that, such as Becton Dickinson, and so really kind of gathering them together, and then remembering or how and why we do it and reason why we do this, and then kind of seeing the end users who are able to go and do this type of research to again solve today's problems. That type of stuff kind of keeps me going.
Fulfilling. That you are part of something that is going to develop potentially the next cure to a disease or
Yeah, exactly. I'm not smart enough to do that. But
no, but I mean, you're part of it, right? You're like...
in some way, in some degree, right?
They're the person who's helping create that structure just to develop these things,
helping,
right? You need a space to do it.
Helping feed and build the ecosystem,
And another thing for the listeners is with these spaces, there's a lot of regulatory things you actually have to pass.
Yeah.
And so it's not just a typical building. You cannot just do a typical building. There's actually a lot of things that has to be up to standard to that, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
That's where we, have the, architectural designers, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, who are all experts in those code compliance areas. Interior designers too. We bring them on board and stuff like that. So there's definitely a whole team of designers who are designing to more of the code compliance and regulatory, and then as we go through the city process as well, they're kind of then doing their checklists, right? And then we kind of go back and forth on those comments till we finally say, okay, now we're good.
Yeah.
We'll build the thing now.
Awesome. So do you do contracts on the side, consultations?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think, this would probably either be, I've done it on large scale commercial projects my entire career.
Right.
I don't think that one person's coming up to me with a $600 million project, but I think, definitely on the kind of smaller commercial scale or even a residential standpoint to it, right? I would say more of the commercial kind of setting almost would be more just because, there's a little bit more involved in that. I feel like a lot of people can kind of...
Nothing like multi-unit.
Multifamily is fine.
Multifamily is fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's something some people are young investors.
Yeah, exactly.
They get into a multi-unit, you can do that.
Yeah, with a little bit more complexity to it, right? Not just a single family residential home.
You can make it sexy, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Almost more focusing on how, if you have a depleted asset, right? A multifamily, how do we throw some money into it? How do we make it profitable? Get it back onto the market where it's, leasable, and you want to be able to lease your building at the same time. So,
what would you think about the qualifications that a person that were to come to you will need to have before coming to you? That you're like, okay, I could do this.
Qualifications, just to even get started into it?
Yeah.
I would probably say definitely have the property.
Property for
Right?
sure.
Yeah.
Can you help with their licensing?
Oh yeah, the whole permitting process and all that
Perfect. Okay.
stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I've represented owners and investors of commercial buildings and doing it
Perfect.
from a
Okay.
kind of multifamily, smaller scale. It's definitely just if you have the property and you have a problem, help you navigate through that problem in
Yeah.
that sense, right?
Yeah.
Or even from a kind of like due diligence period of buying it and then having the idea of flipping it.
Okay.
Type of idea.
Awesome.
So
I love that.
even have the network of folks who can probably help you find the property as well. I wouldn't say I do so much of helping you find it and buy it. More kind of how do we reposition and reflip it to where you can kind of make it a more profitable asset.
Okay.
A deal.
Are you flexible when it comes to budget? Like you think you can work with just about any budget, or what do you think?
From a consulting standpoint, I would say just about any budget really.
Yeah.
I think from a commercial setting, I've done everything from billions, millions to billions type of deal. From a multifamily and even residential standpoint, I haven't done too much of that. So I would say from small to large, really.
Yeah, you have flexibility. You can do it
I've done more of the
awesome.
large sizes. I haven't done too many of the small stuff. But really, it's almost the same, a little bit different at the same time.
Yeah,
you know what
smaller.
I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we'll go to a short break and we'll be right back.
Today's episode is sponsored by RenovateMagicHub.com, your guide to transforming your home. Whether you're updating a room or planning a full makeover, Renovate Magic Hub provides tailored product suggestions to suit your style and budget. Visit RenovateMagicHub.com for inspiring and practical tips to create a space you'll love. Welcome back, guys, to the episode. Anthony, I want to talk more about your background. Because my podcast always focuses on, what makes you essentially. And I want to promote, multicultural, but also, that we're very diverse and that we can be in different fields out here in America. Talk a little bit more of your background and
So, born and raised here in San Diego.
Lucky you.
Yeah, I know, right? Been stuck here. Worst place to be stuck. But no, I'm the youngest of three brothers. I have two older brothers and my mom. Both my parents immigrated here from Laos way back in the days. My oldest brother was born in Laos, and then my mom had my middle brother and me here, and as most really immigrant parents, they came to America to live the American dream, right?
Yep. Are you living it?
Yeah, living the American dream. I mean, there's always, refinements of what that American dream really looks like, right? As you kind of age. But I would definitely say, definitely there, and as much as the work can be stressful, it's always kind of, something to positively reflect on. But yeah, born and raised here in San Diego my entire life. And I was the first in my family, to kind of go to college.
That's a big achievement.
Yeah, it was.
Were they very proud of you?
They were, and my oldest brother spent most of his career Iraqi war, so in the military service in the Army Reserves for a long time. And, he was kind of, absent throughout that kind of childhood period as well. And then middle brother was, what they always say about the middle.
Problem child.
Problem child, right? So,
I think it's true. I've met enough people that are middle children.
Yeah, so, he was the problem child, and then, of course, I was the young, innocent, golden child.
The golden child?
At some point, right?
So you thought you were special?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of, me kind of grew up here in San Diego. My parents weren't the richest or anything like that. They definitely tried and did their best to kind of get us where we're at, and then definitely had, challenges in the family kind of growing up.
Because your first two brothers didn't go to college, where did it came the idea of going to college? Was it your mom, or was it like you thought about it and you were like, hey, I think I want to go to college?
I think it was something that I wanted to do because I had some friends that were doing it.
Oh, okay.
And,
so like an influence.
Yeah, and I went, when I was in high school, I was that good kid who was like senior class president and stuff and kind of, part of the student organization and stuff like that. So I just wasn't aware of college and how to exactly apply and get there.
Yeah, but you knew you were likely going to do it.
Yeah, exactly. I got to figure out how. Fortunately, I didn't really start figuring out how till after. After high school, whatever it happened.
Okay, everybody's journey is different,
Yeah, exactly.
It don't matter how late you get there.
Yeah.
If you get there, or if you don't get there, it really don't matter.
100%.
Yeah.
For sure.
What would you advise for people that they don't know what to do, but what you say what's key in the job that you do, that maybe this is something they can do in their future? What would you say?
For someone who maybe likes seeing things on a piece of paper from intangible to tangible, or to the touching and feeling and be able to see things come to fruition, and then even someone who has curiosity of like, the building process or even from the aesthetics or the architectural standpoint, right?
Would you have to be somebody who is open to always learning new things?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
and I think that just applies to everybody and generally in life is, you never stop learning and continue to push yourself and you can grow a little wealth of knowledge in your head, honestly. And I would say for me, I'm a person who wants to continue to learn and, learn something new every day. I would go back to school if I could, or if I would. If I didn't have to pay for it, I should probably maybe would, but we're not doing that.
Student loans.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Student loans are like the battle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Also, parents that were immigrants, but we look different naturally, as an immigrant. Did you ever feel different growing up, or did you fit in school? We live in Cali. It's pretty multicultural. It's more open.
I would say, in San Diego, there's a lot of diversity all around.
So you never struggle with your identity, so to speak? Because I
growing up around diversity, it was normal, and racism, I thought that was long gone. No, I would say I did, and it's probably came up around that college time where I am the low income, darker skinned guy around campus on a predominantly white, very privileged campus, right? So then I grew insecurities of fitting in, of getting good grades as well as them. There was a lot more challenges as a first-gen student in a private university. And then having to try to adjust to that, cope to that, and struggle through that, and then compare yourself against people who do have money versus not having money.
What helped you though overcome that? Or you think it was just like naturally, eventually just goes away? And
no, I would say there was, for me, there was a student support organization on campus that really helped me kind of transition through that.
That's available.
Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
our campus had an organization that helped first generation students or students from disadvantaged families kind of transition into college. So it's almost like a more smaller community knit group of folks who kind of share the same upbringings and backgrounds. And
how did you find them? Did you look up for them, or did they reach out to you?
I had a friend who was able to tell me about the program.
Oh, okay.
Because
it's good to know this is available for people out there who are like, hey, 100%. I'm struggling. Just know this is available.
Some universities actually may have that program. Again, it just really depends on the university. USD, University of San Diego, being the Catholic school that wants to be able to promote and bring people in to better themselves from all different backgrounds is kind of like their mission and their goal for sure.
Awesome.
So the university did offer a program that, we had our own counselors, we had our own tutors that were really kind of free and federally funded essentially, so we wouldn't have to go pay for the tutors or anything like that. And so again, this community is what kind of helped me kind of get transitioned in. And then, kind of because USD was a small school, it was really a tight-knit group of friends that became lifelong friends that kind of really, helped me enjoy life for what it was, at the end of the day.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. So, is there anything you would like to share that will be a good advice for anybody first generation going into college?
I'd probably have to say you have to take the initiative.
Like nobody's gonna come and push you.
Exactly.
You have to go out
figure
there
out the questions yourself, do the research. If you don't have a question, look it up, ask around, right? And that not only applies to just the whole applying process, right? Because that's like an experience for anybody. If you don't know how to do something, you're gonna go learn it. If you don't have the drive, you're not gonna go learn how to knit or something like that, right? So for this application, for the first gen students, it's really go out there and meet the people, put yourself out there, learn the most you can, meet the people and learn about their experiences. That way it can kind of help you in your experience. And then, that drive eventually kind of comes into your career, and that kind of then brings your work ethics and, all that, and helps you kind of like navigate your career with good, strong core work ethics, I would say.
That's awesome. I love that. Thank you, Anthony. So I have a question from the last guest. His question was, if you could interview someone, who would it be and why? They could be dead or alive.
I might have to say like Steve Jobs.
And he's dead,
Yeah, just an interesting story.
Very interesting person,
Interesting person, interesting story. Built a mega platform from nothing, essentially. So, and me being in business, from having a business mindset, I would be very curious to hear the challenges and starting from nothing to get into something, right? There's like the problems of really all in between, which be really curious.
How he did it all, and became one of the most influential person of his generation.
Yeah.
I'd say. Most influential person of his generation, yeah.
It's true. So, I mean, I think he would just be a very interesting person to kind of get to know.
That's awesome. What question will you leave to the next guest?
It would have to be, if you could instantly master a skill, what would it be and why?
That's a good one. Good luck.
Yeah.
Well, Anthony, it's been a pleasure having you. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks for having me.
Where can people find you?
You find me on Instagram. I'll give you my Instagram. If people want to, you add it to the podcast.
Okay. It's a complicated last name.
I know, right? And that's why I'm like, I'll just give it to you.
I'll link it in the description of the podcast, as well as I will tag him in my Instagram. And reach out to him. He won't bite. And if you have a consultation opportunity for Anthony, feel free to reach out to him. He's very knowledgeable. He's done global construction projects. So reach out to him. Thank you so much, Anthony. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Siris. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and drop a like. Share your thoughts in the comments and stay tuned for more inspiring stories. Until next time, keep chasing those dreams.